So I'm going to go over each section of the Korg Polysix and kind of briefly go over what each knob does. Alright, let's get started. So this is a pretty straightforward, fully initialized patch. I have a touch of reverb going on in Ableton, just because the dry sound is a little harsh. So this is filter fully open. We'll start over here with the VCO section. You have 3 octave ranges, 16, 8 foot, and 4 foot. Let's go back to 8. Second knob here is your waveform. So you have a sawtooth, which is what is selected right now, pulse width, and this is manually adjustable, the width of the pulse. And the third one is pulse width modulation, which basically has its built-in LFO here. Got carried away. What else? Sub oscillator. So right now it's off. You have a choice of 1 octave down and 2 octaves down. Let's go back to the sawtooth. This is no sub oscillator. This is 1 octave down, 2 octaves down, which can really beef up the sound, especially if you go down to 16 foot. You're in like click territory. Alright, let's turn that off. Alright, that was the VCO section. Pretty simple. There's only 1 oscillator. Moving down, you have the MG, which is the modulation generator, which old Korgs used to call, it's basically an LFO. You have 3 destinations, VCA, VCF, and VCO. So frequency, as indicated by the LED. Delay, which kind of delays the time it takes for the effect to kick in, and level, which is basically your modulation depth. So on VCA, so if I turn up the delay, see it takes time when I hit the key. It's pretty abrupt when it starts, but it's kind of useful for playing kind of like flutes and stuff like that, especially if you go subtle. There's a VCF mod. I'm not going to touch that for now because my cutoff is fully open. And VCO, which is basically your vibrato, which is best done when you put a subtle amount. interestingly, the mod wheel controls the depth of VCO modulation with the same LFO, independently of what's assigned here. So you can have this assigned to VCA, and then bring in VCO mod here. And that's it for the MG. It's fairly simple. I skipped over the intensity bend, which basically just sets the range for the pitch wheel. So at lowest, wait, turn this off. It has no effect. Turn it up. Maximum, it's, I don't know what that is. A couple octaves, sounds like. What else? And then your basic fine tune of the global fine tune, which is handy for tuning with other instruments, especially as the synth warms up. Alright, moving along. VCF, which I think is an SSM 2240 or 2204. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's a 4-pole chip. Alright, so basic stuff. Manual sweep, resonance. Watch your speakers. Alright, I'm gonna not do that. So cutoff, resonance, envelope, intensity, and keyboard tracking. So keyboard tracking, if it's all the way down, basically the filter cutoff doesn't change no matter where you play on the keyboard. If I bring up keyboard tracking, basically the keyboard keys, the CV is sent to the cutoff, so the higher you play, the wider or the more open the filter is. So we'll get back to envelope generator intensity. Let's skip down to the envelope generator, which is a single envelope generator shared for both the VCA and the filter. Standard stuff, basic ADSR. Have it set up in kind of organ mode with the sustain fully up and attack decay release all the way down. Alright, what do we do? Alright, let's bring up the attack, kind of get a pad sound going. What did I do? Oh, right. So if you close the filter and you have the envelope intensity at 0, basically the filter remains closed, so you can't hear anything. So what the envelope intensity does, it has two sides, one positive, one negative. So positive is basically dictates how much of the envelope generator's control voltage will affect the filter cutoff. If you go positive, it does a positive envelope, and if you go negative, it does the inverted version. It's kind of tricky to explain, but maybe we'll just do some examples. So if I close the filter all the way and I increase the intensity, so now the envelope generator's control voltage will affect the filter cutoff. So if I turn the attack up, turn this down, bring up the release. This is how you can get nice pads going. The filter is very lush. So that is basically it. I can give you some other examples of kind of pluck sounds. And if you go to inverse, this kind of confuses me, but basically you have to crank the cutoff all the way up to hear anything. Basically it's doing the opposite of, it's inverting the envelope generator, or inverting the effect it has on the cutoff. So it basically starts at full volume, decreases down by the rate of the attack, and then goes back up to the sustain level, and then releases up to its maximum at the release rate. So that's why you have to bring the cutoff up if you're going to go negative, because it starts high, brings it down low, and then goes back high. So you get this kind of like double trigger effect. Kind of cool. All right, let's bring this back to organ territory. All right, moving along. VCA, nothing special. You have a switch here to determine whether it's controlled by the envelope generator or it's just on-off based on the keyboard gate. So in envelope generator mode, I've just hired the attack just so you can hear the difference. If I switch it to gate mode, it's basically on. Let me remove the cutoffs. It's basically fully open as long as the key is down, and fully closed immediately when you release a key. So setting it to gate mode is basically equivalent to if you set it to envelope generator and you have the organ style, sustain up, everything else down. Same effect. There's an attenuator knob. Not really sure what the purpose is. It basically just boosts the signal 10 dB plus or minus. I just leave it at 0 and use the volume. Moving down, effects. So you have 3 effects. Right now we're in off. You have chorus, phase, and ensemble. Chorus is basically a chorus. And this knob controls both the speed and the intensity at the same time. And I read in the manual that apparently as you increase this knob, as the intensity increases, as the speed increases, the intensity decreases, I believe, so that you can hear the effect better. I'm not really sure. That's just what I read. Next up is phase, which is kind of like a phaser. You almost hear like a yaw-yaw effect. And finally ensemble, where this knob only controls the intensity. I'm not really sure what ensemble is under the hood, but you get this very, almost like a string machine style effect going. Particularly useful with pads. So if I turn this back into more of a pad. Turn this effect on. Very 70s string machine. back into something manageable. Alright, turn the effect off. We're back to normal. Alright, arpeggiator. Pretty basic. Again, you have a speed knob, range, mode, and latch on off. This button controls your arpeggiator whether it's on or off, so let's turn it on. Alright, so latch is on. I'm on 1 octave, and the mode is up. Actually, let me get a more plucky sound going. Just gonna be. Alright, just gonna be more pleasant to listen to. Alright, so arpeggiator on. Could go from really slow to almost audio domain, but not really. Sorry. Alright, so I'm just going to turn this down so I can speak. Range, so we're in 1 octave right now. You can turn it up to 2 octaves. And finally, there's a setting called full, which basically goes along the full range of the keyboard, depending on where you start. So if I start here, it's going to go up and repeat it, these two. If I start here, it's going to repeat here. If I start here, it's going to repeat the whole keyboard. If I start here, it's not going to repeat at all. So if I go full and I start here, basically it goes all the way up. If I start here, it only repeats here. And if I start here, it doesn't repeat at all. Let's bring it down back to 1 octave. Let's see. So mode, standard mode, up, down, and up, down. Currently we're in up. If I go down. Oh, sorry, I switched it to up, down. And down. It only goes down. Basic stuff. Latch, turn off the latch so the harp plays when you put your finger on a key. Which is kind of cool. You can get like video game 8-bit style. Not really doing it justice. Sort of, kind of. It's like having a really fast note repeat. Do like old school RPGs. Zelda style or whatever. Alright. It's a little too much. Alright, turn off the ARP. Key assign mode. So let's go over from left to right. You have a hold button, which basically will hold whatever key you press. Whoops, let's turn up the sustain so you can actually hear it. What else? So now we're in poly mode. You can go to unison, which is exactly what it sounds like. All 6 voices stacked. So it's basically a mono synth, but with 6 layers. Personally, I'm not crazy about that. It's a little too huge. But if you're after that, then it's great. And finally, chord memory, which is exactly what it sounds like. So the way it works is you hold down a chord, and when you press chord memory, it'll remember the notes in the chord, so that you can then play that chord using only one finger and transpose it up and down. So if I play a basic C minor triad, so now it's locked in. So now it's going to play a minor triad basically on whatever root I press. Which is kind of cool for if you do a fifth, get those old school. Kind of neat. What else? Let's see if I. Carried away. Back to poly. And finally, the last section, which isn't about synthesis, but more about managing patches and writing to a tape. I haven't used the tape features, so I can't really comment on that, but you can check the manual if you want. Basically, I think you can just export and import patches to a tape of some kind. It's probably old 80s technology. Not really familiar with that. Other than that, you can store presets. You have 4 banks of 8 presets. And then there's a manual button, which basically whatever you see on the panel is what you're going to hear. So easy to browse. You have A, B, C, D banks. So you go A1, 2, change banks, pretty easy. And then if you edit your patch, basically you just hit right and then the spot you want to hit, and it'll remember that. Go back to manual. The last section is just tape, enabling the tape and write protection, so you can lock it so to prevent overwriting presets. And I think I covered everything. That's pretty much it. It's a pretty basic synth in terms of functionality, but the sound is really quite lush and big. The attack is not as snappy as I would like, but I prefer the synth for kind of weird, eerie pads. For example, especially when you bring a low, turn up the mod wheel to get a VCO mod at a low rate. Just love that sound. That's a basic overview of the Korg Polysix. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy my videos, please like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.